Some of these are very tiny. You know, we appreciate them. They're just tiny. Wanted to do a video on shadow work because I was talking to my friend. She's a spiritual group that we have like group chats in, basically. And we were talking about shadow work. And I was looking, what did she want me to do? She wanted me to basically talk about it today on a Zoom call with everyone because she wasn't feeling too good. I mean, she's probably just a bit drained because she organizes the group and everything. She's Venus in her 10th house, so I was like, okay. She's just already getting like a lot of spotlight as far as what she's doing in her career with spirituality. So I was like, okay, of course, And basically, the first thing that came to mind, though, when I thought of shadow work was, because we do journals, and I'm a good verbal person, but I'm not really good at writing out things. I'm getting better at it, It's just, I guess I associate writing with, like, writing for school. When you think of it, it's stupid, because they would have you manifest their shit, right? Like, you'd write about their history, which wasn't even true, but manifest that. It was like a bunch of spell work, I'm like, what the fuck? So now I write for myself, and petitions to the universe, things like that, and the shadow work prompts, for sure. But I was thinking, okay, how does ancient Kemet think of shadow work, right? And so I was shown, I like looked it up, the 9 parts of the soul, and which I thought was funny because like one of the parts is called the Ka, K, right? For the astral self. And my name's Kayla, and I'm like astral project all the time. So I was like, what the fuck? That's cool. Maybe I chose that in another life. I was like, let's go by this so you remember. Maybe. You never know. Anyway, one of the parts is called the Shuyet. So like Shuyet, and it's the shadow self, right? And apparently they thought of it as a protective sort of facet of oneself, right? A good example of this, I mean, I consider it a kind of shadow, is like, Hathor and Sekhmet, right? Whereas Hathor is the healing aspect, and of the deity Sekhmet, who's like plagues and war and fire, desert, associated with harsher aspects, right? Even though when she like basically carried out her shadow self, it was for the greater good. It's just she kind of was just going too far, and she started off with a heart, a Pleiadian heart, with a heart just like so pure, right? So loving and healing, but she just couldn't stand to see what humanity was doing anymore. And I thought that was interesting, because in Western culture, we tend to look at this shadow as this very taboo part of ourselves that we integrate, that we reject, right? Whereas they were thinking of it as something that we can incorporate into our being, right? It's part of us. It's protective, and it comes out at specific times, right? Like basically what happened, Ra, right? The sun deity, basically Sekhmet's father, right? Basically put a bunch of beer onto the ground, dyed it red so it looked like blood, because she was like bloodthirsty, right? To appease her, and she just got drunk, and then when she woke up, she was Hathor again, right? And it was like, and I'm like reciting that part of the story because it's like she was almost, it's like it's 2 incarnations of one being, right? But with 2 very different motives. And the shadow self has its own divine, like the divine shadow, and then there's the divine, basically the divine light, right? So the divine light was like Hathor, and then divine shadow was Sekhmet, right? Both needed. Like right now, with everything going on in the world, justice being set and the scales being, set to balance, right? Because it's not about good or bad, right? It's just about justice. And Sekhmet is definitely running rampant, right? As the divine shadow, right? Amongst all the light. And that's beautiful in its own way, right? Because if we don't have that divine shadow, then who will protect us, right? Just same with having a healthy amount of ego. It's kind of like that. Because it's not always love and light, as a lot of us have noticed, right? It's not as much as we'd like it to be sometimes. But the universe we're in, this 3D realm, there's polarity, right? So, I mean, that was interesting to think about. Definitely. And I even wrote down a few, like, basically questions to ask yourself when thinking about your shadow. And I'll go get them. Wrote it in my journal. Journaling helps get everything out. You know, I recommend it. Or even videos. That too. I've been letting my hair do whatever the fuck it wants, if you haven't noticed. It feels good. I like letting it do what it wants. I miss my little friend, Sam here. The dog. His owner. So, we're gonna get to it. Yeah, get to it. Remind me of the professional high priestess. She's like, let's get into this. I love her. I love her so much. All right. These plants are looking beautiful. Why? Because I got a green heart. Not green thumb. I got a green heart. Off into the sunset. Yeah. Yeah. I took a picture and it was like this, and I was like, solar eclipse. Get it? All right. Oh, that's beautiful. Hello, tree. Hello, divine. Okay. So here's the questions I asked myself. I'm liking to ask myself. Technically, I asked myself then, but haven't really gone in depth with it and like wrote out the prompts, but I'm going to. Okay. And so shadow work. Who? Shadow self. The ancient Egyptians saw the shadow self as an important protective facet of oneself. What? Define your god or goddess essence. What does your high frequency divine essence look like? Your Hathor self, right? Describe it. What does your shadow self look like? Your Sekhmet self, right? What does it represent? You know? Whereas like Hathor is like healing, whereas Sekhmet's like rage, you know? And honor in a way, right? So what descriptors and adjectives would you would you give those parts of yourself, right? And then like a win. Okay, when does your shadow side serve you at this time in your life? Does it serve you at all in this time in your life? What type of situation could it serve you in this time in life? How could you transmit your shadow self to its highest frequency? Or how can you make your aka demons or whatever shadow work for you? Right? It's a good way to incorporate. All right. It's awesome, guys. It's awesome.